Hi, welcome to Start Something. What we'll be talking about today is how exactly to pitch your idea, your project, your startup to someone who is then potentially going to give you money to make this happen, right? So essentially what we're going to take a look at is how to pitch in front of an investor. We're going to take a look at the framework of what are the things that you need to explain to these people that supposedly have large sums of money and are willing to give that money to some other people in order to make them even more money. So it's all about money. But we're going to take a look at how this kind of a presentation should be structured so that then you guys can actually structure a presentation and put in all the information that you need to so that you can start practicing your pitch. Alright, so this isn't going to be a lecture on how to hold your hands, that you need to smile, on how to battle stage anxiety. This is purely a lecture on what exactly it is that you need to tell potential investors for you to stand a chance of getting an investment. Now, this whole idea and this whole framework is based on Sequoia Capital's framework on how to present an idea. You can look it up on sequoiacap.com/ideas. But essentially we're going to go through that and we're going to explain to you how to do it. Now, before we go into that, there's one thing where we should stop at, and hopefully my PowerPoint is going to work. Okay. Yeah, so here's the thing that we want to talk about. So looking at the whole framework from a perspective, from a faraway perspective, what's going to happen is you're going to say the same thing 3 times. You're going to explain the whole of your company, the whole of your startup in 3 different ways, at 3 different times, at 3 different lengths. So firstly, the first slide that you're going to have is going to be your purpose. Here, what you want to say is explain everything that you want to do, everything that your startup stands for in one single sentence, in one single slide. This is going to be the hardest job that you have to pull off, but if you manage to pull it off properly, it is going to be the one for which you're going to reap the most rewards, right? So this is the first time where you're supposed to present the whole of your company in one place. Now, the second time you're going to go through the whole story of your startup is when you're going to be talking about the problem and the solution. There comes a time in the presentation where you're going to identify what is broken in today's world. You're going to say this world is a very, very uncool place because of this problem that these people face. We've got a solution for that, which is X. Again, as you're going to see, you're going to be explaining everything that you do, but now in a bit more detail, right? Then later on comes the third phase where you essentially do the same thing, where you're going to present the team, the product that you have, the market that you're tackling, and the financials, which are again going to explain pretty much everything you do in your company, but again on a much, much broader scale and going into much more detail. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is, keep in mind when you are going to be designing this presentation that you're essentially going through the same thing 3 times on 3 different levels, right? So when Nike tells you our purpose is to make people run faster, better, stronger, or whatever it is, this is the whole of their company, right? When they then tell you, well, the problem is that if people run barefoot, they are going to destroy their legs and so on and so forth, and running shoes are bad and blah, blah, blah. And we have a solution for that, which are Nike shoes, which are awesome and trendy and everything like that. Again, they're saying essentially the same thing. They want to make people better runners. But it's now being said in more detail. Now, if you were to sit down with a conversation with Nike, talking about the team that they have, the actual products, the market, the financials, you would again be getting the same story of making people better runners, but on, again, a much, much broader scale with much more detail. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, this is very important. Your presentation is not just a piece of paper. Okay, this is very, 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 very important. Okay, while you're going to be creating your presentation, while you're going to be creating your pitch, you are going to learn new things about your company. The questions that you're going to have to, that you will need to answer, in your presentation are some very, very, very important questions that your startup is going to face. So At the moment where you don't really know what to say in that presentation, while that might be a sign of you needing to work on that pitch, or you needing work in your public presentation or public speaking skills, right? Often, and more often than not, that is going to be a sign of you not having something clearly figured out about your company, right? So please remember that oftentimes the mistakes and the holes that you're going to find in your presentation, in your pitch, are the actual holes in the concept, in your concept of what your startup wants to become, okay? Now, just to briefly go through, before we go into the actual frameworks, there are some very interesting elements of sustainable companies that Sequoia Capital tries to name there. And let's just go over a few. Let's go over a couple or a few. So the first one would be the clarity of purpose, right? So every good company, every sustainable, every successful company knows what they are here to do. Our purpose is to do X, and this is the only thing that we're concerned with. And this is something that you are going to be encouraged to find, or that you will have to find if you want to A, present effectively, but B, exist effectively. Secondly, sustainable companies have large markets. That one is pretty self-explanatory. They have rich customers. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that these customers are rich in terms of having millions and millions and millions of money. These customers are rich in value that they are willing to provide. Whether that value is money, right? So if I'm rich and I can buy a very expensive car, the value that I'm giving to that company is monetary value, is actual money. However, if I am Facebook, then my users are also rich, but are rich in a different kind of value. They are rich in social value, which I then move on and sell to someone else, right? But there needs to be a certain abundance of value in your relationship with your users. Number 4, focus. You need to be focused. So start killing features and stop adding new ones. You need to know what your target is, and you want to hit that target as straightforward as possible. Successful and sustainable companies are painkillers. They solve problems. They make me as an individual or as a group in society feel a less pain about whatever. But as long as you make me feel more comfortable, happier, feel a less pain and less misery in living in this world, then I'm going to be thankful for that. These companies think differently, right? They are creative. They persevere through hard times. They're willing to take on huge risks, oftentimes even when those risks, rationally speaking, would be better off not taken, okay? They have a team that is able to function together. They have a team that is able to perform and a team that is able to execute. They are agile. They can adapt to the changes that happen out there. They are frugal. They don't spend money just throwing it around as soon as they get that investment. And they go through what is called the inferno. So the first couple of months of the startups where you're pretty much pissing blood and you're going through all of your life savings, so on and so forth. But after you come out of that inferno, teams usually emerge stronger and more powerful than ever. Now, why did we go through this? Number 1, to tell you what the important things are to succeed as a startup. But secondly, the question might be, why are these things important if what we're talking about today is pitching and presenting in front of investors? These are the things people believe will make you a good entrepreneur. So essentially, these are the values that you need to communicate. As long as you show that you possess these things, that you and your team know how to pull this off and actually is able to provide all of these criteria with some substance so that you're able to show people that you actually possess these qualities, then those people, those investors are going to invest in you. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes? Cool. Moving on. Number 1, company purpose. Here, you need to define the company and the business in a singular declarative sentence. What is your purpose? What do you do? What are you trying to achieve? Why do you, as a startup, as a company, exist? Okay? Now, there are 3 things purpose comes down to. And we're going to take a look at each of these now. Number 1, vision. Where are you going as a startup? What is your vision? What kind of a world would you like to live in, and why are you trying to generate or create that kind of a world? Secondly, what is your mission? You are on a mission to achieve something. What exactly it is? What are the steps? What do you need to happen? And thirdly, values. What are some of the values that you and your startup are not willing to compromise? What are the things you stand for above everything else? These are the things that you need to consider when you're going to be constructing your company purpose. Okay? So make sure you think about them hard. Now, if you want to look at an example of how that looks like, I think this is a pretty brilliant one, right? So this is the pitch from Speakeasy, which is essentially a startup dealing with events. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, their purpose is communicated in such a beautiful way, right? What we do, we are changing the face of events around the world. That is their purpose. They want to completely redefine how events happen everywhere on this planet. Okay? And you need a sentence very, very similar than that. And this purpose comes out of the values of this company, right? Which are internal to them. They come out of the mission on which they are on, and they come out of a vision they have of what kind of a world they would like to live in, right? And all these things together generate their purpose, which is the first thing that they tell us. Number 2, the problem, okay? You need to then, after you've stated what your purpose is, define the pain of the customer. Why are the people willing to give you money? What is their problem? Why are they unsatisfied with their lives? What is broken in today's world, and what is it exactly that we can change about that world in order to make it better? Okay? You need to outline then, after you've identified the problem, how the customer addresses the problem today. Okay? So, before email showed up, people were sending mail through the mail. Okay? So even though people had a problem with the mail not coming fast enough, or it taking very, very, very long for it to reach from point A to get from point A to point B, they were already solving that problem, either with pigeons or with regular mail, or even carrying the messages on their own. And after that with the telegraph, and so on and so forth, and with the radio, and going on and going on and going on, right? So even when email showed up, and even though it did solve an actual problem that needed to be solved, okay, at the end of the day, people already had a solution for that problem. It was just that that solution wasn't as cool as email is. Okay? So when you are going to explain the problem, you need to tell us what people are doing in order to solve that problem today. Okay? What you need to do here is remember your business model canvases and state your value proposition explicitly. You need to be as clear as possible here. Okay? You need to say, this is what we do, this is our value, this is the value that we bring to people. So you say, sorry, the current world is broken, something is seriously wrong, the problem is this, and what we do is we bring this type of value to the world in order to solve this problem. Okay? Now, the fabulousness link is broken because Dress Rush, a startup which specializes in helping brides choose the perfect wedding for them, has been renamed to Tailored, and their pitch disappeared from the internet, even though they claim it didn't. I'm guessing it'll be back up in a week. If you get the chance, please check it out. It's called Dress Rush. Their pitch is quite amazing, and the way they outline the problem is simply brilliant. Unfortunately, I'm unable to show that to you right now. Luckily though, I have a different slide here that is going to show you how a problem is very, very well explained, right? So this is the slide from SEO Moz, which is a company dealing with search engine optimism. And it is actually showing in this slide that the organic advertising market is underinvested, right? So what their premise is, the current problem with the online advertising industry is that while organic drives 90% of the traffic, or even more than 90% of the traffic, right? Much more money is being spent on paid traffic through the web, right? So what they say is the problem is people are throwing money in the wrong box. They're throwing money at the machine that isn't working instead of throwing money at the machine that will work and does work, right? So they say this is obviously broken. If we can solve for that, if we can solve the fact that people are now spending money on the wrong thing, we are able to provide them with value, and we are able to grow, and we're able to solve that problem, and people are happy, and so on and so forth, and we have tons of money, and we're successful, so give us money, okay? But the point is that I think that the explanation of the problem here is very simple, and it's very brilliant, right? Because they have one sentence explaining what the problem is, and it is immediately clear to us what's going on. Okay? They say the organic market is underinvested. And I love the fact that they say underinvested, because they had 100 different options to choose from. They could say people aren't spending money on organic social reach, people aren't spending enough money, people aren't willing to pay for that, there aren't any services offering blah blah blah, so on and so forth. There's 100 different ways to say that, at least, if not an infinite ways. Okay? But the fact that they say organic marketing is underinvested, I think is brilliant. Because firstly, they tell you what this thing is about, organic marketing, which as far as presentations are concerned, and this is a bit of a sidestep, but as far as presentations are concerned, you always want to identify the thing first and then the action that happens with a thing. Okay? In ordinary language, the way you would construct a sentence, you would first start to paint the context and what is happening, and then identify the thing, which is actually doing those things. But as far as presentations are concerned, you want to turn it around, right? So organic marketing, and they absolutely tell you what we're talking about in the beginning, is underinvestment. And by underinvested, they are already explaining a bunch of things. By saying that it is underinvested, it means that the money that you put in is going to give you more money back. Right? So it is an investment. It isn't something you pay for. It isn't a service you buy. It isn't an apple that you buy and eat and the money disappears. It is an investment. It is something that is essentially going to generate more money. And calling the organic marketing underinvested is actually quite brilliant, because it says the only thing that you need to do in order to make more money is to put more money into it. Right? And they position themselves on a brilliant position that if they solve this problem, as far as this slide is concerned, if SEO Moz convinces the investor or the person who they're pitching to that they are able to solve this problem, they are going to produce free money, right? As far as that statement is concerned. And I think it's quite brilliant. Now moving on. Number 3, you need to explain, after you've explained what the problem is, your solution. What exactly is the way to solve this problem, right? You need to demonstrate your company's value proposition that you offer to the customer. That's why you did your canvases, right? And tell them how you're going to make the customer's life better. It is as simple as that. You need to show us where your product physically sits. You need to show us where it sits in the world, where it fits in. It isn't enough for you to tell me the solution is a web service that allows us to do this, because that is simply stating the problem and adding the words web service to it and making it a sentence, right? You need to show me how does it place on the current market. Where does it sit? How does it fall into play with all of the other things and solutions that we have right now, okay? So you need to provide a bit of context. You should always provide use cases. So show me how this is going to be used, okay? It isn't enough, for instance, if you go back to this slide, to say, well, the solution for this is to allow companies and marketers to easily invest more money in organic marketing, right? That doesn't explain absolutely everything. And even though it is something that sounds like a solution, it contains zero information. right? So make sure that you show us how does your product relate to everything else on the market, and give me some use cases. Show me. The way users are going to be using this is they're going to come up to our webpage and there's going to be free stuff there, and they're going to be struck by lightning at that moment and think that this free stuff is actually stuff they need to pay for, and they're going to give us money even though we're giving them free stuff. I don't really care what that explanation is, but you should strive towards the fact that you should make me understand what the use case actually is. Especially since, because if I'm an investor, most probably I don't quite know what these people do. I am not your target customer, right? Most of the time. So you need to explain it to me what exactly it is that these people who are target customers are going to be doing. Again, back to Speakeasy. This is their solution. I think this is very good slide design, right? So they say there's 3 parts to our solution. There's social, geo, and a payment, okay? And then they say the solution, in order to solve the problem that Speakeasy identified, was to promote events and meet new people, okay? This is what we want. We want to map our events and find events nearby. That is what we would like to do. And we would like to buy and sell more drinks, tickets, and food. And when you bring all these things together, you get Speakeasy. Okay? And it is deceptively simple. Okay? But what they tell you here, this is what Speakeasy allows. Speakeasy allows you to promote events, meet new people, map these events, find new events nearby, and buy and sell more stuff. And that's it. Okay? It is a simple way of explaining what their solution is. Number 4. The question that then comes next is very important, yet people often don't pay enough attention to it. Okay? And it is the question, why now? If you do come up with a problem that needs to be solved, and if you do come up with a solution that makes sense, is affordable, so on and so forth, the question then is, why hasn't anyone done that before? And trust me, you're not brilliant. At least 100 different people at the same time have the same idea that you have in this world right now. Okay? The question is, why have we now come to the point where we can actually pull something like this off? Right? So you need to set up the historical evolution of your category of business to show us why now is the day where we should do this. Okay? When email happened, the why now question was very easy. Hey guys, the internet is here. That's why now. Before, there was no internet, which means no email. Right now, yes, internet. Okay? What you need to do here is define recent trends that make your solution possible. Okay? So what you want to talk about are different things happening in the world, on the markets, in the startup community, wherever, that are going to show the investors that now the time has come to make your solution viable, to make your solution something that is useful, to make your solution something that actually can exist, right? So make sure that you do explain that. Now, I think it's best that we take a look at that through an example, and this is again SEO Moses' example, right? So they say, why now? And they say marketing spending is still unbalanced versus behavior, right? And what they have here is a chart of how much money companies spend on different types of advertising, right? So you've got other broadcast TV, newspaper, cable, internet, and radio, right? Now, the interesting thing about this slide and why it is a very good why now slide is that if you take a look at it closely, you're going to see that the green bar keeps consistently growing. So it doesn't really matter what the total amount of money spent on advertising is. Every year, the amount of money being spent on the internet is bigger. Which means that as far as SEO Moses is concerned, it doesn't matter how much money companies spend on advertising altogether every year, if that is growing or dropping. Because the interesting thing is that even when the sum total of advertising falls down, the subtotal of internet advertising grows, right? So they say, why now? Because people spend more and more money on advertising on the internet. Before people spent and companies spent these amounts of money on the internet, it didn't make sense to do anything of that sort because you couldn't provide the scale. Right now, yes. Why? Because it's growing and because it's about to explode and because it's going to grow faster and faster and faster. Okay? So they are able to efficiently explain why now is the moment where we can actually do this, why yesterday it still wasn't, and why tomorrow might be too late. Okay, market size, it's number 5. Remember, investors are here to make money. If you don't have a market to sell people to, you're not going to be making money, not for yourself, not for the investor, which probably means that you aren't going to get an investment. What you need to do here is 2 things. Number 1, you need to identify and profile the customer that you're selling to. Okay? We did the empathy maps. I hope you guys still remember them. I hope you have them stored somewhere. This is where you use them. This is where you tell the investor, my typical customer is blah, 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 blah. They do blah, 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 and blah, blah, and then they blah. Okay? This is what you explain here. And then you need to tell them, based on that definition of your typical customer, what the market sizes are, right? And we've got 3 things to tell the investor here. The TAM, SAM, and SOM. The total available market, the serviceable available market, and the serviceable obtainable market. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use an example to explain this, okay? Now, the first number that you're going to operate with is the total available market, which is essentially everyone in the world which might potentially buy this, and if everyone does that, we get this much money, okay? So this is a presentation from Airbnb. You all know Airbnb, right? So their total available market is trips booked worldwide. If everyone who ever took a trip and ever needed to spend time anywhere and sleep over would use Airbnb, this is how much money Airbnb would get. $2 billion a year, okay? That is their total available market. But not all of these people are going to actually purchase services from Airbnb. So then they have the total obtainable market. Sorry, the serviceable available market, which is the market that they can actually service. So there is an amount of people that you can cater for, and after you reach that number, you simply do not have the capabilities to actually service more people. Okay? So this places a limit on you yourself, essentially. Okay? So that would be the second one, right? So budgeted online. They are only concerned with customers who travel budget and who book stuff online. The people who don't book their trips online, unfortunately, Airbnb is completely unable to service them. There's absolutely nothing they can do about people who go to a travel agent, because these people pay in cash to an actual person who does stuff for them. People who buy their trips online, however, are people who are interesting for Airbnb, right? And you see how the total available market of $2 billion has now dropped to $500 million. Okay? Right? So this is the second phase. Now, the last one, the serviceable obtainable market, is the actual people that you can service, provide the value for, and get to buy stuff from you. Okay? So even if you're the greatest in the world and the most brilliant person in the world, you're always going to have, if nothing else, competition. You're always going to have people who are just not going to choose to buy that from you at that exact moment. We're going to choose to try something else or not try anything for now. Okay? There's a bunch of reasons people don't decide to buy stuff, and there is a bunch of external factors that the number of people that are actually going to come to your business rely on, right? But at the end of the day, the serviceable obtainable market should be a market that you can service and obtain. For Airbnb, that comes to about 10.6 million trips or dollars. Okay? Do you now understand the difference between these three? Okay, so you've got the total available market, which is if everyone on the planet who has this problem buys your stuff, this is how much money you get. Okay? Secondly, if everyone on the planet that you can service, that you can take care of, buys your stuff, then this is how much money you've got. In serviceable obtainable market, if everyone who you can service and everyone who you can actually get your message to, get your service to, so on and so forth, buys stuff, then this is how much you actually get. Okay, number 6, competition. You always have competition. There is no such thing as not having any competition. If nothing else, people are currently solving their problem in a certain way. Okay? This is very important. You are never without competition. Even email, even at the end of the day, I'm not sure who the first email provider was, but if it was email.com and there was nobody else providing email at that time on the planet, they still had competition. Who was their competition?
Ordinary mail.
Yes, and fax machines, and telephones, and everything else. Okay? So what you need to do here is, number 1, list your competitors. So tell us who your competitors are. Who are the people, the services that offer the same thing, that are currently solving the problem. And then list competitive advantages. What you need to tell us now is why these companies are worse off than you are. Why are you better able to win in this race than they are? Why are you better able to solve the problem? Why are people more likely to buy stuff from you? All of these things need to then come next. So you do 2 things. You list your competitors and you show us why you are better. Now, again, back to Airbnb. This is a pretty standard layout. So this has now become a standard thing. You draw 2 axes. Okay? So what you have is, on the x-axis, as far as this presentation is concerned, you've got offline and online stuff, right? So where you pay. And then on the y-axis, you have affordable and then expensive on the bottom, right? So you've got 2 things that Airbnb is trying to show you, right? So what they're telling you is, Craigslist is pretty affordable, but you need to pay for stuff you get there offline. Rentobee.com, you need to pay for stuff you get there offline, and it's pretty expensive. Okay? Hotels.com, it's pretty expensive, but you can pay for it online. Hostels.com is, you can pay for it online, and it is slightly more affordable. But when we come to Airbnb, it is the most affordable stuff that you can pay for online. Okay? So out of this graph, out of the positions in which the companies are, you can immediately see what the competitive advantages of Airbnb are next to other people, right? So if you would want to ask the question, why is Airbnb better than Craigslist? The answer is what? Well, because it's A, more affordable because it's higher, and B, you can pay online because it's to the right, right? Why is Airbnb better than Hotels.com? Right? You can pay online for both, but Airbnb is more affordable, so it comes out higher, right? So this type of a presentation allows you to present what your competitive advantages are, right? Airbnb then has another slide where they list them explicitly, right? So they positioned themselves with their competition before, they listed their competition, and now they're going to go and explicitly tell you what their competitive advantages are. So stuff that they weren't able to show you before as they were listing the competition. And these things are, number 1, they are first to market. They're the first company doing something like this at the market that gives them the first mover advantage. They have a host incentive. Airbnb is structured in such a way that the person who hosts these people actually gets some money, which means they have an incentive to do stuff, right? So they have an incentive. They have people who have a reason why they should do things. They only allow you to list, they make sure that it is enough for you to list stuff once. It is easy to use. They allow you profile. They have a design and they have a brand, which is now pretty much baked into all of our collective unconscious. We all know what Airbnb is, and that is definitely worth something, right? So this is how they do it. Now, the next one, product. What you need to give us here is how exactly your product looks like, okay? So while you gave us the solution, which was in general terms what needs to happen in order to solve this problem. So if the problem is getting up and walking to the TV and clicking a button in order to change the channel and then sitting back down, if that is the problem, the solution is a machine that would allow you to sit in your couch and change the TV channel. That is the solution. A generic remote control is going to solve for that problem. However, if you are Sony, you are selling a very, very, very specific remote control, which has certain buttons, runs on batteries, these kinds of batteries, blah, 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 so on and so forth. It's made of plastic or metal or whatever. Okay, so you have a definite product. Now, what you need to do here is you need to show us what that product is. You need to show us what the actual thing is that is going to solve the problem. And there's a bunch of things. You need to show us the form factor, so how it looks like. Is it trendy? Is it cool? What are the functionalities? What can it do? What are the features? What is the architecture? What is the intellectual property? It's completely open source. Do you own everything? Did you steal any of it from anyone else? Should we be concerned? All of these things need to be answered. Now, the most important thing, however, on this slide is the development roadmap. Your product is not going to be what it is today once you start shipping it. It is definitely not going to be the same. Okay, so the stuff that you do is going to change dramatically. You need to show us that you have a plan and that you know what you're about to do with this. Okay? And even though you're going to deviate from the plan and do something else, a development roadmap is something that is extremely useful when giving a presentation like this. Here's a very cool example. Okay? So this is a startup which essentially allows me to save all of my dreams, all of my goals, the stuff that I want to achieve, and then it wants to leverage social action and the internet to help me achieve those things, right? So it's stuff like climbing and climbing Yosemite and blah, 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 and hike this mountain and go there and visit this village and so on and so forth, right? Now, I love this because they give you a picture of a phone, they give you a screenshot of the app and they tell you this is the product, this is how it looks like. And then they show you the functionalities. They show you this is a place for all your dreams. It allows you to beautifully capture your journey. It inspires you and allows you to learn from others. And it allows you to plan your steps. Okay? And that is everything that needs to happen for an app like that to work. Right? So it needs to be a place where you put all your dreams, you need to have some kind of a photo functionality, so on and so forth. But what they show you here is exactly how their product looks like. You already know how it's going to feel to use this app. This is what you want to achieve. This is what you want to aim for. Number 8, business model. At the end of the day, people are here for money. They're going to give you money only if they're going to believe that they're going to get more money back out. In order for you to convince them of that, you need to show them what your business model is. Okay? That shouldn't be too hard. You need to show them what your revenue model is, how you're pricing the thing, what is your average account size and or lifetime value. Okay? So if I get a customer into my service, for instance, what is the average value that I get from this customer up to the point from the moment where it signed up to the point where it leaves and never comes back? So what is the lifetime value of that customer? So if you're selling online goods or online fitness supplements, how much money do you get from each person that signs up? So somebody comes up, creates a profile, starts buying stuff. How much stuff on average do they buy before they disappear forever? Those numbers are important because those numbers are going to allow you, or the VC in that case, to predict what growth you're going to have. Okay, so we need to know, if we give you $1 million, what exactly do you do with that? And you say, okay, it costs me, I don't know, 20 euros of advertising and stuff to get a customer to my webpage, and then that customer has a lifetime value of 1,000 euros because it is there for 15 years and buys stuff every single day. So I get 1,000 euros on every 20 euros spent, which means that if you give me, I don't know, 100 euros, I will have 5,000 euros out of that, out of the 5 customers that I've bought with that advertising. Okay? So that is what you want to be able to communicate. You want to show what your sales and distribution model is, how exactly you're going to distribute and sell stuff. Okay? For mobile apps, that is deceptively simple because people usually just have to say, well, we upload it to the App Store. But even now, it isn't that simple. Okay? Whatever you have, you need to know how you're going to be distributing it, how you're going to be selling it, how much is that going to cost, is it going to cost anything, so on and so forth. Lastly, if you have it, this is awesome. But people usually don't have it. But if you do, this is awesome. You want to show the VCs that stuff is already happening. You want to show the VCs that people are interested in your stuff. How do you show that people are interested in your stuff? You show them how many users you have, or how many paying users you have, or how many customers you have, or how many deals you have lined up, right? So you want to give the VC some sense of how far along you are, of what exactly needs to happen next, of how many deals you've got, how big of a thing are you already. Okay, so you want to show that. Now, again, we would go to the dress rush pitch, which is awesome. And I know you know that it's awesome, but unfortunately it got turned down. So we've got another example, which at this moment is the business model of Airbnb, which again, I love it because it's a deceptively simple slide, right? They say, we take 10% commission on each transaction. Doom, done. Everything is clear from now on. And then they say, 10.6 million trips with Airbnb with an average fee of $20 gives them 200 million of revenue per year. That is the stuff that you should explain. This is how we make money. This is how many users we get, or this is how many customers we get every year or every month or every week. I don't really care. Average, on average, we make this much off of a customer, which means that on average by a year, by the end of the year, we should have this much money. And that's it. And then you project that for a couple of years forward, right? Because most probably you aren't going to be as lucky as Airbnb, but you're first going to need to burn through the investment money and then slowly climb up. And you want to show that. You want to show the VC when exactly did you get the money back they invested you in, when exactly did you make them a profit. Does this make sense? Okay. Team. Lastly, you need to tell the people you're pitching to who this team is. At the end of the day, investors are always going to invest in the team. They're investing in the people because the idea is going to change, the implementation is going to change, the business model is most likely going to change. The only thing that isn't changing in a startup is the people running it. Okay? So at the end of the day, when a VC gives you money, it's not, I'm giving you money to pull this off exactly by the book. I'm giving you as a person money in order to make this happen, and I trust you as a person to make this happen. Okay? And you need to show them who these people are. Okay? So give them the founders and the management, give them the board of directors or the board of advisors if you have one. You probably usually won't. But, please remember, keep this slide very simple. What we want is a picture of each of you with a couple of lines, a couple of words of text, what it is that you're doing. Bamf, I'm John Doe, I'm the founder of John Doe Startup, I do programming, and I have 50 years of programming experience. And then the second team member is John Doe 2, who is a co-founder, and she is a CEO, and she's got experience in 6 companies that she's been CEO of, and we're going to take over the world. Thank you, give us your money. Okay? Now, this is essentially the stuff that you want to give them. You want to give them a picture so that they get a certain feeling of who you are. Secondly, you want to tell them what you do, what your experience is, but only the experience that matters. Okay? Nobody cares if you've been to the Boy Scouts. Nobody cares if you've been to music school. What you're doing, stick to that. Show us that you have competences to do that. Everything else is unimportant. Okay? Here's a very cool example. Okay? A picture, what these people do. This is Kevin Brackett. He founded New Mindspace before he went on to Speakeasy, and he created International Pillow Fight Day, which is celebrated in over 150 cities around the world. So he is awesome, okay? And he does marketing, right? And his experience and the stuff he did, even though he did a bunch of other things in his life, is only the stuff which presents him as someone who is good at marketing, okay? And then we have Andrew D'Onofrio, let's call him, who's a developer, right? And the experience that he's presenting is the experience that he needs to be, okay? So he was a designer and developer for over 10 years. He is the founder of Peace, Love, Human, founding team, Metro, has worked with New York and Silicon Valley startups, including Splice, Sustain Lane, and iRive, okay? So this is the stuff that he needs to tell you. Everything else about him is unimportant, okay? Everything else that he did in his life matters absolutely nothing. He only needs to convince you that he has been a good programmer his whole life. Lastly, you're going to need to show the investors some financials. You're going to need to show them at least some kind of projections about what's going to happen. Now, even those projections are going to be completely made up, let's be honest, and they aren't going to follow through. You need to do that in order to show that you know what's going on, that you have an understanding of how a business works, that you can have a constructive discussion with your VC about where this is going to go. Now, you want to strike a balance here between how much you're going to display and how much you aren't going to display. But since this is start something, we aren't going to be concerned with financials right now. I'm going to show you an example so that you get a bit of an idea of what needs to happen, but I know that none of you are even close to getting ready for anything like this. Okay, so again, back to SEO Moz. They're very good with numbers. Who would have thought? So this is how they present their financials, okay? So they say, we took one round of financing in 2007, 1.1 million. Okay, so this is here, right? They've got the red one is their consulting revenue because they used to be a consulting company, right? And then the blue one is their software revenue, which is essentially what it is that they're selling, what SEO Moz is, okay? And then in 2008, burning that 1.1 million, they get more software revenue. In 2009, they say, we drop consulting entirely, right? So in 2009, they see an increase in the amount of fees they get from consulting and say, screw this, we're not getting enough money off of this. And they throw it away, right? And then their revenue keeps on growing. The blue lines, in April of 2011, we hit 1.2 million visits a month and 10K subscribers. Right? And 2011 will be our first 8-figure year, and we maintain margins of 83%. So what they say is, look people, this is our history, it looks pretty epic, we've taken an investment here, this is how much money we've made since then, now please give us more money so that we can make you more money. Okay? I love this slide because it conveys a bunch of information in a very effective manner. The problem with most financial slides, however, is that they have some kind of graph up there which nobody really understands. You get about a minute to present this when you're pitching to people. It needs to be clear. I think this is a very, very good example. Okay, now what are you going to be doing for the next 30 minutes is you are going to be designing a presentation of your own. You're going to get this on an A4 sheet of paper, so you won't need to be turning your head. But essentially, what I want you to do is you're going to go to a whiteboard and you're going to structure your presentation. So we need something for each of these slides. So we need a company purpose, bam, a single sentence. A problem, explain to me what the problem is. Solution, bam, solution. Why now? Market size, blah, 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 so on and so forth. You can drop the financials because you have absolutely no knowledge of that yet and you didn't do any research, but everything else that you need to put in the presentation, you should already have ready because this is stuff we've been doing throughout the program. Okay? Are there any questions? No? No? Does this look scary?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, but it's supposed to. So yeah, let's take a break, 4 minutes, and then you pick up the papers and we get to work. Yay!